There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another book haul. No other preliminaries necessary. First of all, this is the one book from the BookTube prize that I had not yet acquired, and I got it in the last several weeks. Fatima Farheen Mirza's A Place for Us, and I have just started it a couple days ago. Can't talk about it yet. There it is. Nice cover, hey? Here is the opening sentence. As Amar watched the hall fill with guests arriving for his sister's wedding, he promised himself he would stay. I was trolling on Amazon.jp the other day, several weeks back, looking up Persephone books. I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with Persephone books because I think their covers are pretty ugly. I actually kind of like this band. Some of them come with this, not all, I'm not sure. Maybe I haven't bought very many of them brand new. But I got this one, Tori Heaven, or Thunder on the Right. Two titles with an or, that's weird. Tori Heaven, or Thunder on the Right, by Margarita Lasky. I remember that Anne from Beyond the Pages liked this, but I couldn't remember any details, so it was so cheap, brand new. It was like $6 or something. $8, I don't know, but it was really cheap. Because Persephone books are not cheap. So I asked Anne, do you think I'd like it? And she said, yes, you would, so I bought it. She said it's a little bit of alternative, kind of a little bit futuristic, but published in 1948. I'm interested more in the writer than I am in this particular novel, but I will certainly try it, because I remember Ange talking about Lasky. She was born in 1915 to a family of prominent Jewish intellectuals. Her uncle, Harold Lasky, was a socialist thinker. And that's all I need to know, but it's another mid-20th century female British novelist that I'm interested in trying. Here's the opening sentence. It is difficult after the passage of years to recall the precise emotions with which the population of England switched on their radio sets one summer evening in 1945 and prepared to hear that the Tories had won the general election. So I don't actually know if that is true or that's the alternate reality. Wasn't Churchill turfed out? Was it in 1945? So I'm not sure if that's within the world of the novel or actually in history. This was one of those, I find a lot of really arcane, out-of-the-way books that nobody else has ever heard of except maybe the person tweeting them on Twitter. And I found out about this one. This is from a publishing house, where is it? In Europe somewhere. It's by a very tiny independent publisher called MA Bibliothèque. I don't even know where they are located. It says on the webpage that I found in the tweet, and I'll put that link because that's the fullest explanation I see here. All of the books published by that publisher, MA Bibliothèque, will migrate to a little online bookshop, and I think that's why I ordered it. I don't know. But the booklet that I had just enough money lurking in my PayPal account to buy on a complete whim was, look at this. So here is the hardcover just for size, and there is this little booklet. It's called Entertaining Ideas, The Long View by Kate Briggs. It's an essay of personal literary criticism about a novel that I've never heard of, published in 1956, Elizabeth Jane Howard's The Long View. And for some reason, what I read about it on that page made me buy it for $15, and I'm so glad I did. And of course, I want to read Howard's novel, The Long View, first, and it's a chunkster. Cheap on Kindle. I may get a hard copy. I haven't decided, but this is like a 2020 reading project. And then read this tiny, individually bound essay about the novel. Kate Briggs is a translator, and she said that this essay began as a reading exercise, an effort to perform a good reading of Elizabeth Jane Howard's The Long View, and to think about what a good short reading of a long novel might mean. That just captured my imagination, and I hope that my eyes will hold up because the print is very tiny, but it's probably a 30-minute read by looking at, well, some of the pages are full. And if it just gets me to discover a new mid-20th century female novelist, that's all it needs to do for me to be happy. Opening line on one page. I assume the she here is Elizabeth Jane Howard, but it may well be the protagonist of the novel. I don't know. The desire to go backwards, to retire into the life she knew, was very strong. So, this was just one of those little Sean moments of, I have to buy it. I don't know really much about it, but I have to have it. So I have it. Faithful viewers of my Friday Reads may remember the funny incident where I was buddy reading a book called The Brontes Went to Woolworths by Rachel Ferguson with Ange of Beyond the Pages and Heidi of My Reading Life, and she swears that I have carte blanche to tell this story on my channel, so I have told it before. She ended up interlibrary loaning the wrong book with a very similar title, Our Spoons Came from Woolworths by Barbara Commons. And it was momentary confusion because I thought maybe I was the one that made the mistake, but we checked Ange's TBR video and no, it was the Rachel Ferguson novel. So I said to Heidi and Ange, I suggested, let's read the Barbara Commons novel later this year. So that for that reason, I acquired this. Barbara Commons' Our Spoons Came from Woolworths, which was originally published in 1950. That's my era. And it's about a pretty young woman, 21, named Sophia, who is hastily married to Charles, a young painter, and I don't want to know anything more. And the opening line sucks me right in. I told Helen my story, and she went home and cried. So I don't know exactly when the three of us will be buddy reading it, but maybe towards the end of the year. Or next year, doesn't matter. Another wandering around on Twitter and seeing somebody reference this novel. This is a Afrikaner, South African novel translated into English. The Expedition to the Baobab Tree by Wilma Stockenstrom. This is an Archipelago Books book. I am very hit and miss with their books, but I want to give this a try. Translated from the Afrikaans by J.M. Coetzee. It is about a former slave in southern Africa seeking shelter in the hollow of a baobab tree, if I'm pronouncing that right. Baobab trees are fascinating. Oh, this opening paragraph looks pretty interesting, so let's experience it for the first time together, shall we? With bitterness, then. But that I have forbidden myself. With ridicule, then, which is more affable, which keeps itself transparent, and could not care less. And like a bird into a nest, I can slip back into a tree trunk, and laugh to myself. And keep quiet, too. Perhaps just keep quiet so as to dream outward. For the seventh sense is sleep. That's quite beautiful. So I should have sent it back because it's really scuffed here and I don't like that. But I didn't. So still a pretty cover, hey? You will know by now that Ian Lee is my new favorite writer. I discovered her through her collection of memoiristic essays, Dear Friend. There's a longer title, which I won't try to quote. And then I immediately went from that, which was a life-changing read, to this collection of short stories, Gold Boy, Emerald Girl. And I buddy read this with Joe Smith, and I really enjoyed them. I didn't love them, or a couple I loved. The rest, most of the rest I liked, and there were a couple duds. But I was really glad to delve into her fiction and look forward to reading all of her fiction in due course. I did it on Kindle, and even before I finished reading it, I ordered the softcover for the purposes of having all her books on my shelf, because that's just the way that I roll. So the story on this one, this is Peter Abrahams, a South African writer, his autobiography, Tell Freedom. I studied it in high school English class, and my memory of it was that it was a novel, so it's whatever, it's an autobiography, and I loved it, and it's my first encounter with anything from South Africa. And I've always remembered it. And 15 years ago, I acquired a lovely hardcover edition, which I hope I still have in a box somewhere in Canada, and actually sent a fan letter to Peter Abrahams, who went into exile in Jamaica in about 1950, maybe 1960, and was murdered at the age of 97 years old about 2 years ago. That just breaks my heart. This was first published in 1954, and I think maybe he was already in exile or soon thereafter. He was murdered by like a break-in. It was a break-in, and the thug killed him. So I acquired this other copy. It's not that beautiful, but I can't remember anything about it, really, now. So I want to reread it. But it's about growing up in the slums of Johannesburg, coming into racial consciousness and racial liberation kind of activism. I don't remember how activist he got, but it was powerful to me as a teenager. Let's see how much it speaks to me now. Oh, I want to share the opening paragraph. Again, I have no memory of this, but here it is. I pushed my nose and lips against the pane and tried to lick a raindrop sliding down on the other side. As it slid past my eyes, I saw the many colors in the raindrop. It must be warm in there, warm and dry, and perhaps the sun would be shining in there. The green must be the trees and the grass, and the brightness, the sun. I was inside the raindrop, away from the misery of the cold, damp room. I was in a place of warmth and sunshine, inside my raindrop world. I've got a bunch of Blame It on Eric Carl Anderson acquisitions here, and the first one is The Mating Habits of Stags by Ray Robinson, which he held up and on a recent book haul, and I ordered the same day because I had like $40 burning a hole in my pocket. That's just a bad combination. I've never heard of the writer. Ray Robinson was born in North Yorkshire. His debut novel, Electricity, was published in 2006, shortlisted for a bunch of literary prizes I've never heard of, and he's written a handful since. Okay, now this is very interesting. He wrote the multi-award-winning short film Edith, on which The Mating Habits of Stags is based. So that is very rare. First the film and then the novel by the same author. That's really intriguing to me. I wonder if I can find a way to watch the film Edith first. A retired farmhand, Jake, is wandering the North Yorkshire countryside trying to evade capture and thinking back on his life. Sight unseen, I'm going to read you the opening paragraph. Jake and Edith followed the sheep trods up the side of the fell. Moving through last year's bracken, frost scorched a deep rust color. They paused to catch their breaths, taking swigs from their water bottles, listening to the wheels of lapwing in the sky. Soon they made it up onto the rocky plateau. In the distance, the peaks of the Lake District. In the middle distance, the Howgill Fells, Garsdale, and Sedberg, the place where Edith grew up and lived until recently. Jake had asked about her family on the drive over, more out of courtesy than any real interest, and her breathing had gone quiet, and she muttered a non-response. Oh, that's quite lovely. I'll give it a try one of these days. And another one, the same day, from the same book haul by goddamn Eric Carl Anderson, was this one, which he thinks he in his recent Booker long list speculation video, which is just a delight. I don't care about the Booker at all, but just him speculating about which books might be on it was delightful. And the last one, the Stag one, and this one he mentioned. And this is called Rules for Visiting by Jessica Frances Kane. And the way he described it, it was quite unusual. And I can't remember a damn thing of what he said. Protagonist is May. She's at a crossroads. Her career as a university gardener is flourishing, but she's in a rut otherwise. Elderly father, estranged brothers, and keeping distant from her neighbors. And it's what she does to maybe get herself out of that rut. It's got an epigraph from The Waves. No wonder Eric wants to read it. Oh, this is a lovely opening paragraphs too. A problem. If you're in an airport on a moving walkway, and a stranger glides by on the opposite walkway, holding a book bag printed with a phrase you've been thinking about for months, how long will it take for you to finish the sentence? You have no frequent flyer miles, an unprecedented amount of paid time off work, and a new rolling suitcase named Grendel. A best friend is someone who... ... Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I'm really curious about this one. And there's the cover image, eh? Kane's first novel, 2011, The Report. 2 short story collections. And she lives in New York City. Oh, for some reason I just assumed. Why did I just assume it was a British novel? Maybe because of Eric Carl Anderson. Published in London. Oh, Natalie. There are pictures of trees inside. The next 3, which I will show you as a batch, are Blame It on Leah purchases, because she sent me a really fabulously aggressive tweet showing me her copies of these books, all by Rachel Ferguson, who's the author of The Brontes Went to Woolworths, which I mentioned earlier, and which a novel that I read earlier this year and loved. I will link to my review. And I think the reason that I wanted to read it was because of Leah, because she had read it previously. And she's the one, I'm pretty sure she's the one who put me onto this new publisher, Dean Street Press, and they have an imprint called Furrowed Middlebrow, and they're bringing a lot of her other novels back into print. So here are 3, and Leah sent me a photo of them and said, "When are we buddy reading these?" It's like, she knew what I would do. I bought them within about a week. Here they are. So, just look at the gorgeous design of the covers, and I'm really intrigued to read more by Rachel Ferguson. I don't know about publication order, but just randomly, we have Evenfield, A Harp in Lowndes Square, and A Footman for the Peacock. They are just lovely, 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 lovely books. And I bought one, and maybe in my last book haul, I bought one by Alice Elliott, I think. And I think I want the whole set of all. There's about 30 books, and I need them all immediately. So I'm not going to read the opening from each of them. I'm going to choose the best one. Rachel Ferguson, her dates were 1892 to 1957. She died in Kensington, where she had lived most of her life. Her novels were published from 1923 to 1954. Okay, hands down, the best opening is from Evenfield, and Evenfield was originally published in 1942. So listen to this. I love this opening. Of all of us Morans, I was to be the one who fell in love with our house, lived with it, was separated from it, reunited to it, and finally parted from it by mutual consent. There was no legal separation, let alone a public divorce. We just discovered mutual incompatibility, and it was, I see now, my fault from beginning to end. Certainly the house, as my senior by over 50 years, should have had sense for the 2 of us. On the other hand, I, as the woman in the case, was the mental senior by probably as many years more as women so persistently are, where wisdom is in question. That's fabulous. I couldn't stop laughing. So I'll read it again. I, as the woman in the case, was the mental senior by probably as many years more as women so persistently are, where wisdom is in question. And my affair with Evenfield was a boy and girl one, a childhood affection that should have turned out well, since we knew the best and the worst of each other, by the time that matters reached their climax. Oh, I love that opening so much, I want to start reading it right now! Leah, can we start with this one? Another Blame It on Eric. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly. I believe this is a Blame It on Eric from his last book haul. And this is a novel set in British Iraq. Is that the right way to describe it? It's about Iraq during the First World War. And wasn't that under a British mandate? Published in 2018 in Cairo. This publisher is in Cairo and New York. I don't know how to pronounce it. Hopoe. I'll put a link to that publisher just because it's so unusual and interesting in the show notes as well. And it is an alternative narrative of First World War Iraq by a journalist. Now, I'll tell you, I have a prejudice against novels by journalists, and I don't know why, because why? Journalists are good writers. It's the leap from nonfiction into fiction. I can't remember ever having read a novel by a journalist that I didn't like or that I did like, but I just kind of poo-poo it, that genre hopping, and I need to at least try some to see if there's anything there other than my own obtuse prejudice. Because Ruqayya is... sorry, I haven't even shown you the book. It's called The Watermelon Boys by Ruqayya Izzadeen. And Ruqayya Izzadeen is a... This is just fascinating. She's an Iraqi-Welsh freelance journalist. That is the most incredible author bio I've read in my life. and a writer currently based between Morocco and the UK. She has lived in Cairo and the Gaza Strip since graduating from Durham University. Oh my god. I think I found this on Eric's book haul. I'm not entirely sure anymore. Let's see how it opens. Oh, I like this too, maybe. I've just glanced at it and I think, ooh. The present is an arrogant time in which to live. Always has been. Humans of the present look back at their people, land, and history and whisper to themselves with glee, "We are not them." But we were always them. We are our history. We are the crimes of our ancestors. And we wait, mouths agape, to hear tales of hope, as though good could triumph in such a world. That is fucking amazing. Excuse my English. Excuse my French. Oh, I think I need to get to this very soon. Ooh, I'm really intrigued by this. Because I made this video, I actually read the opening lines. And this is a Blame It on Ian Lee purchase because John McGahern's memoir, All Will Be Well, featured prominently in her collection of memoiristic essays. I haven't read a darn thing John McGahern ever wrote, but she talked about this memoir so much in her essay collection that I got it, so now I have it. Now, I only share opening lines or opening paragraphs when they have some kind of a standalone vitality, and I've really lucked out tonight. I think I've done almost all of them. Here is McGahern's. The soil in Leitrim is poor, in places no more than an inch deep. Underneath is daub, a blue-grey modelling clay, or channel, a compacted gravel. Neither can absorb the heavy rainfall. Rich crops of rushes and wiry grasses keep the thin clay from being washed away. So again, I was just not minding my own business, slumming around on book Twitter, and somebody mentioned a publisher that I had never heard of, and I went to Amazon to peruse what was available, and the publisher's name is Handheld Press, and they have a series called Handheld Classics, and two of them, brand new, were far less than $10 each, so I got them sight unseen. The first one is called Desire by Una L. Silberad, and she was actually a British novelist. Okay, I love the fact that in the introduction, her family ethnicity is not identified, so it's not important. She was born in Essex in 1872, and I see here she had been referred to as a middlebrow novelist, which sounds potentially interesting. It was originally published in 1908, this novel, and it's about new women. I actually did quite a bit of academic research on new women, especially in Britain, or the UK, in my brief, ill-fated academic career. It's the story of an Edwardian new woman who finds fulfillment in work and love after rejecting high society. Sounds like my life story, except for the work part. So yeah, it's not translated at all. This is so interesting. I think it was like $4 on Amazon Japan. You should check it. Vocations by Gerald O'Donovan. And look at that lovely painting of a nun. And Gerald O'Donovan, this is a 1921 novel set in late Victorian Ireland. Also part of the Handheld Classics series. Again, this was like $6 or something. Brand spanking new. O'Donovan was born in 1871 in County Down. The novel is described as a searing indictment of treating young women like commodities in the marriage market or the market in nuns. So we're now going to move into the Britta Bowler portion of my book haul. The first one is for a buddy read that Britta and I will be doing, I think, definitely or very probably during Nonfiction November, and that is The Prison Letters of Nelson Mandela. I don't know how much I've talked about it on my channel, but Nelson Mandela is my maybe only hero, and I've read several biographies and his autobiography and all kinds of stuff, but not for a long time. And Britta has some connections to him that she may choose to talk about on her channel. And we decided that it would be a good time, Nonfiction November, to read something by or about Mandela. I think we've chosen this. It is a chunkster, about 600 pages. Obviously, it's his prison letters. I have heard that his letters are more visceral and compelling than his autobiography, which I read and I sucked up all of the information in it because I was so fascinated. But it's not a well-written book by any stretch of the imagination. And apparently these letters are. So yeah, I can't wait to get into these. I don't know if we'll get them all done in November, but I don't like the cover illustration. Mandela is so hard to draw. I don't know if I've ever seen a good portrait of him. And now this is the highlight of my book haul, and this book just came to my door today. I was here at home minding my own business. I had just woken up from a nap when the doorbell rang. I thought, I'm not expecting any more books. But Kenji was actually expecting some stuff to be delivered, so I went down, and it was a book-sized padded envelope from Germany, and I got this. This is a gift from Britta Bowler, and this is now, as of right now, instantaneously became my most treasured book. Oh my god. This is the Barbara Pym cookbook, which was compiled by her sister Hilary Pym and somebody named Honor Wyatt. Now, I have the softcover book, and the softcover book is nothing special. It's just an oversized softcover, and I gave a copy of it to Ange when she was here. But this is the original first edition hardcover, and those of you who are familiar with Barbara Pym's novels will recognize the patterning of the cover, that this is a special book. I'm not much of a collector of books anymore, but when it comes to Barbara Pym, yes, I want to be a collector. So for that reason, having the hardcover, this was published in 1988. So for that reason, I was pretty excited. And then I opened it. I wish I could have filmed my reaction live, because it is signed by Hilary Pym, Barbara Pym's sister. Oh my god! I will probably never be rich enough to possess a signed Barbara Pym novel, so this is the next best thing. Hilary Pym died in, I think, 2004. I checked it today. I believe it was 2003, 2004. So she signed this. I don't know how Britta found it, but she gave it to me, and I am just over the moon! Don't tell Kenji, but if there's a fire, and I could only grab one thing, I would probably grab this over our wedding pictures. This is such a special, special thing to have. Thank you, my dear Britta. She also sent this lovely bookmark. It's a postcard, which I will use as a bookmark for Wuthering Heights, which Britta and I will be buddy reading for Victober this year. All right, so is that a fabulous book haul, or is that a fabulous book haul? Thanks for watching.